Hello to our penguin community and happy World Ocean Day. I am joined today by PhD candidate Tammy Russell from UC San Diego's Scripps Institute of Oceanography. We're here to talk about penguin poop, microplastics, and her journey to work with penguins. Welcome, Tammy.
Thanks a lot, Katie, for having me.
We're so excited to dive in, literally. So I would love for you to share with our audience about your journey. How did you get into studying penguins? Was it something you always were interested in?
Wow. Well, how much time do we have? I'll give you the short version. Well, I've always been obsessed with seabirds since I was young, and there was just something kind of magical about albatross and penguins, and that they had this mysterious life at sea. And Antarctica as a whole was just mesmerizing, right? It's this really remote frontier space that, we're still discovering things, and it felt so far away. And so when I started my PhD here at Scripps, I really wanted to find a way to connect with Antarctic researchers and find some sort of research avenue to work down there. And I ended up connecting to NOAA's, or National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, their Antarctic division. And we started kind of brainstorming some ideas. And it was right around that time in 2018 that there was all this research being published about plastics being found in Antarctica. And that, to me, just hit me really hard because here this place feels so far away from humans, so untouched, pristine, and we're impacting them through plastics, and I mean also through climate change. But to see the direct kind of impact was really hard. And so I was like, well, we don't know how penguins are being exposed to these microplastics and larger plastics in the ocean. So how about we go collect some samples? And NOAA was on board. And so in 2019-2020 season, they went down there and collected guano or poop samples for me from two different species. So from Adelie and Gentoo penguins. And then COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one was in the lab. The samples sat in the lab here at Scripps, lonely. And so it wasn't until, a couple years later, we started opening them up and starting the analysis. And it was around that time that I got the opportunity to go down to Antarctica myself in 2022.
Wow.
And I collected some more samples at that same site. And then my friends that were going to another field camp collected more samples. And so we now have guano samples from two different sites, 2 years, and across all three species of brush-tailed penguin. And during this kind of transition time from just collecting some samples and an idea to thinking about the project more wholly, it was coined the Penguano Project.
Yes, I love that name so much.
And that's how it all started.
Yeah, it's just so cool that, you started out as a kid just really loving animals and then found this pathway. I think it's fascinating how people get into the world of penguins because all of us have such different and unique stories. I love that you made a childhood dream come true by getting to Antarctica. Do you have a most memorable moment when you were there?
Yeah. So I agree. Every day I kind of pinch myself. It doesn't feel real that I get to study the thing I really wanted to study. I feel very, very lucky to be here. There's a couple moments in Antarctica that stand out for me, but I'm a very emotional person. I cry very easily. And so I thought when we got to shore, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be a wreck. I'm going to be crying, you guys. This is a dream come true. I just thought it would be so overwhelming. And it was such a chaotic and adrenaline rush getting there. And then it just hits all of your senses when you come to shore that it didn't sink in the reality of actually being there. And it wasn't until the chaos had kind of calmed down. We had opened up camp. We had done, the essentials when you first get there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to open up a field camp. And it wasn't until I got on the satellite phone and I called my husband and I heard his voice in Antarctica that it brought me to reality. And it was I don't even know if I got any words out. I was just crying. There was penguins yelling. It was a really cool moment. And I think that bridge connecting like the reality back home to what I was actually experiencing was really overwhelming.
Wow. That's amazing. And the fact that like we have technology nowadays where we can like make that phone call and like have that connection and like, yeah, it really puts us in our place of people in the world and how everything connects to this bigger picture, which I really like because it kind of ties back to your research of like, the small things and how those matter. For those that maybe aren't familiar with microplastics, could you share like what are microplastics and how do you look for that in research?
Yeah, definitely. So microplastics can come from two sources. Either they start out small. So in plastic manufacturing, they have these tiny little beads called nurdles, and they'll melt those down and add some chemical additives usually to make the plastic products that we use. Those get released accidentally into the environment a lot. You can find tons of them on the beaches if you're looking for them. And then, so they can start off small, or they can come from larger pieces of plastic and break down from either, being hit with UV that kind of breaks down the plastic, or like hitting things, the ocean water. They slowly break down over time. And so they get smaller and smaller. And they can, range in size from nanoplastics, which means like they can usually cross through tissues, or these microplastics, which are, around 5 millimeters or smaller. But so they can get into I don't know if you want me to get into the diet.
No, please.
What we're concerned about is these microplastics are in the seawater. And Antarctic krill, which are these really large invertebrate that is hugely abundant in the Southern Ocean, all three species that we're studying primarily feed on these Antarctic krill. And these krill have these amazing little appendages that they create a current around them that brings in small microscopic algae called phytoplankton. But what can happen is when they create these currents is that they can also filter out these microplastics. And so when the penguins eat them, then they can ingest the microplastics or eat the microplastic. And so that's why we're really concerned, because the penguins' primary food are these filters that are filtering the seawater. And so we think that they might be susceptible to even smaller levels of microplastics. So the research that we're doing, we take the guano, we preserve it in ethanol. There's another lab here at Scripps, Jeff Bowman's lab, and they're doing DNA analysis on the guano samples to figure out what kind of prey or what kind of foods these penguins were eating that gave us our nice little sample. And it's mostly krill, but some species, especially the gentoo penguins, will eat a lot of fish. So we're interested in looking at that relationship between the type of diet and the amount of microplastics we're finding.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah, it's going to be really neat. And those results are going to come back to us any day here at Scripps. So we're all, anticipate, we're all excited about getting those.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And to have some of these things like put on hold during the pandemic and like finally be able to conduct this really important research. It's like, finally.
I've been thinking about this for a long time during the pandemic. So I'm excited to finally see some of the results.
Oh, that's awesome. What would you say has been like the most challenging aspect of your research, if you can share that? And then what would you say has been like the most rewarding?
Yeah, both of those are easy to answer. The most challenging is resources, because this is just a side project for me. It's not part of my PhD. It's something I started because I was passionate about the issue of microplastics. And I've pieced together this project since the beginning, finding pockets of money from NOAA's National Seabird Program. And then late last year, we got a large donation from the Scripps Foundation here. And so, trying to pull together resources, whether it's lab use or microscopes, or the funding we have our first employee. Now we have all of the supplies to finish the research. So it's really been finding those resources to complete the project. That's been the hardest thing, but I've learned a lot and we're doing better now. So
woohoo! We love to see it. But that is a huge challenge a lot of researchers have to face, is like if you do have a side project or an interest, even in going into school in the first place, trying to seek funding to do that work. So
and one of my students, Kai, she's trying to write up kind of like a manual to make it more accessible, these sort of methods that we're using. And so thinking about the cost of things versus the confidence in identifying plastics. So we're thinking about how to make this work more accessible for more people, to make it easier, right? So we've already struggled through a lot of the method development, trying to find funding. So putting all of that work into something that can make it easier for more people to do this work, because it's not going away, this problem.
Right.
And then to get your other part of that question, the most rewarding part, because this isn't my PhD, to keep it going, I agreed that I wouldn't actually do most of the lab work. And so I've used it as a mentoring project. And as of today, I've mentored and taught 10 students.
Wow.
From undergrad to master's in these plastic analysis techniques, into method development. And it's been so fun.
Yeah. That's amazing. 10 students are going to walk away with like being a part of this project, and hopefully more, right? As as it develops.
Yeah. And it was really great because, all of this started during COVID, or, really took off during COVID, and a lot of the students were not getting lab experience. So because all the labs were closed. And so it was really neat to come back into the lab and invite a bunch of students in to get this lab training. And, these methods and techniques are becoming more and more useful, as this is a really fast growing area of research.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even think about the fact that, students that have been through the pandemic haven't been able to have that hands-on experience, because, I've been out of school since then. So it's like, man, what a tough thing to go through, but what an amazing opportunity again for them.
Yeah, it's really difficult if you're getting a degree in any sort of science and then you've never been into a lab.
Oh man, that's just like wild to think about. That it's like, how do you graduate and be like, I need these skills still for these certain jobs. For someone that's looking to work in penguin research, what is some advice that you might have for them? Because I know there's a lot of people probably tuning in that are like, I want to be a penguin researcher someday.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was being persistent and contacting people. Penguin research is hard. I've still struggle to be a part of it in some ways. And it's those connections and networking. And luckily, everyone that I know in the penguin world is super wonderful and nice. And, people will take you under their wing. And it's just reaching out to people. I was always nervous to do that. Like, I definitely didn't feel like I could just kind of cold call a researcher, but there's nothing wrong in that. Reaching out, asking questions, asking, if there's opportunities, keeping people in mind, those sorts of things go a long way. And staying, kind of up to date in the research, because maybe you're already researching something that could benefit the stuff that's going on with penguins. It's through interesting collaborations and diverse perspectives we can, expand our research impact. So keeping up to date with what's going on, and then just bug people. nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like a lot of it is these connections and meeting people and talking to people and hearing what they're working on. And a lot of people I know that have, again, ended up in penguin research. They may have started in something completely different, like Antarctic krill or fish or something else. And then like, or a lot of times seals and sea lions. And then they end up also doing penguin stuff just because it makes sense.
Yeah, the mammals and birds, we overlap a little.
Yeah, it's those marine species. They're so cool because there is that bit of overlap there. Has there been someone in your career or in your life that you've like looked up to that maybe has served as a mentor to you, or someone that you're like, I aspire to be like them?
Oh, I have a very long list of people.
I do too.
Thankfully, I have a really big network of mentors that have helped me and continue to help me all along this path.
Yeah.
With my penguin work, there's definitely a couple that stand out that have been, essential. And the first would be David Ainley. I met him at a conference when I was in community college. I don't get nervous very much, to meet people. And I felt very nervous to meet him. And I felt totally out of place coming from community college to this conference. And he was so generous with his time. And we have stayed in contact since. And we just co-authored a paper last year. And but he's been a really big mentor for me in my research overall. But I mean, I've learned a ton from him about seabirds and penguins, and just a very creative person.
Yeah.
And then Jefferson Hinkey up at NOAA's South Antarctic Division. He's the head of their seabird work up there, and the one that made me made the opportunity for me to go to Antarctica possible. Taught me about doing field work on penguins. And was just so was a wonderful teacher, and a wonderful collaborator. So both of them with the penguin work. And I mean, when I first asked Jefferson hey, can you collect me some penguin poop samples, his reaction was just, yeah, of course.
That's easy to get.
I think he was like, I think we have to work out shipping, but yeah.
That's amazing.
So, having people that are just there's been a lot of people, but both of them have been very generous with their time and resources, and, have always treated me like a scientist from the beginning, which was really neat because I didn't really necessarily feel like I belonged at first. So, yeah.
That's also why I love having these kinds of conversations with people like you. It's like showing the world that a penguin scientist isn't always what you picture in your head. And I think it's just like we come in all different shapes and sizes, and the penguins that we study are very different, and what we're studying is very different, but it all kind of ties together.
Definitely.
And I love the quote of like how penguins are marine sentinels representing ocean health, and how that ties to human health as well. So it's just, there's so many things. I mean, I could talk penguins all day.
Definitely.
Really. But one of the things I know that you've done that's really cool is you actually were working with Birch Aquarium to design and open their little blue penguin exhibit. Can you share a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah. So this also happened during COVID. The summer of 2020, I got asked to join one of their committees on the interpretive design of the enclosure. And so it was a really whole new way for me of thinking, in that we're not only thinking about compiling scientific information to share with the public, but how the public would interact with that space and learn from it and care about not only the little blue penguins, but penguins worldwide, right? And so it was really a neat creative project for me to work on, and taught me a lot about thinking about our research and communicating our research to everyone, right? So it was a really neat experience. Birch Aquarium is a great group of people, a wonderful place. And the enclosure it turned out so much better than I think any of us could possibly imagine. And that work, so not only was I a part of, that exhibit building, but also I thought, okay, well, we're studying penguin guano down here, and we have penguins up there, and I need to train students. And so I saw this really natural connection to Birch, where we go and collect samples from the little blue penguins, and all of the students are trained on those samples before we crack open those really precious, hard to obtain Antarctic samples. And so we have an unlimited supply of training material. And it's been this really neat collaboration where Birch gets to, this exhibit, they're not only part of the species survival plan for that species, but they get to contribute to the research that's going down at Scripps too. And they also, Jeff Bowman's lab also did kind of test DNA analysis on those samples to make sure their methods were okay. So it's been this really neat relationship with Birch, and that they're helping us, and we're providing them some neat stuff to talk about with the exhibit.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that people can go and visit like a local aquarium like Scripps Birch Aquarium, and learn about the animals there, but then see how there's like this other level of science that is happening that maybe people might not know right off the bat that the aquarium is contributing to. So
yeah, and it's a really neat bridge to talk about plastic pollution, and then for people to realize that research is going on right down the hill from Birch.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And I know too, the first little blue penguin hatched at the beginning of February. What has the response been? Have people been like cheering? Was there a party?
Well, it was kept under wraps for a while, which was hard to contain. Everyone loves baby penguins. Everyone loves penguins. So it's been an extremely exciting time, and, really neat that not after, it's only been a couple years and there's already our first chick. And so it's really an exciting time for Birch and everyone that's connected to Birch. People are very excited, and every time there's a photo shared of the baby, it's, viral.
Oh my gosh. Of course. Like any penguin chick ever, I'm like, I am immediately loving this.
Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely like a time of celebration for Birch and for that little blue penguin community, because they work with other aquariums and zoos as part of that species survival plan. So, every new chick is a celebration.
Yeah. And of course, we are celebrating Year of the Little Blue Penguin this year. So we're, of course, joining in that celebratory situation.
It's a great start to that year then for us.
Yes. I have to ask as well, because I always ask people this, and I know it's really challenging when you study penguins, but do you have a favorite penguin species? I was going to ask it.
I should have known. It's really difficult. I think I'm going to have to say Gentoo. Because the chicks are very different than the Adelie and Chinstrap, where they go and explore when they're really young. They don't stay at the nest. And watching them explore is one of the most adorable things I've ever seen. They'll come up. They were coming up to the hut where I was sleeping and pecking at the wood.
Oh my gosh!
This little pod of chicks would keep me up at night, talking about stuff. I don't know. And so they were just always very curious. I saw them chase feathers. I've seen. But Adelie and Gentoo get the zoomies, cats and dogs, but they're more inquisitive, I think, and that's very endearing.
That's amazing. When you say they have the zoomies, is it like they're just waddling really, really fast, or are they like sliding? Or
Well,
I'm trying to picture
I
it.
think it's a behavior to build up the muscles for their flippers, but they will just start flapping their flippers super fast and jumping and skipping around, and it's kind of like, I mean, I have cats, and so when my cats get the zoomies, it looks like they don't have control over their bodies. You know, they're just doing things and reacting, and that's kind of what the penguins are doing. But it's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And like, I know
everyone. Katie.
Oh, I would love to see it. I'd love to share it with our audience if that's possible too.
Yeah,
but
definitely. I got a couple of them, but
oh, good. Yeah, that's so funny, and it's something that you like wouldn't think a penguin would necessarily do until you're there.
Yeah.
And pecking at your wall while you're trying to sleep as well. Like, who knew?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, laying down at night and I was exhausted from field work, but you're just laying there and hearing all the noises of the adults calling and the chicks chattering and pecking. And I knew, I was like, I'm going to miss this noise. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep, but I'm going to miss it.
Oh my gosh, how incredible. I like you said you would cry, when you get there, and I feel like I would be crying with penguins like keeping me up all night. How amazing. And like a core memory too, that you're never going to forget that moment, being in the field. And I'm sure it's like exhausting work being in the field all day long, but so rewarding as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, some of the best experiences of my life for sure.
Oh, so good. I also wanted to point out that you were chosen from UC San Diego to be featured in some ads. I know they did a campaign for UC San Diego. What was that like, seeing your face like blown up all over campus and the community?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I knew they were going to use my face, and they made a mosaic. So we did like a photo shoot, and then an artist took my portrait and turned it into a mosaic of fish and mostly birds, and some marine mammals. So it was really cool, and I knew they were going to use it for like some ads, but I had no idea the extent I was going to be everywhere. And so I was just randomly getting like text messages of my new face location. And the most surprising was on the side of the big UCSD library. But yeah, it was pretty weird.
I feel like as scientists, we tend to be a bit more reserved. And so when it's like something like that, it's like, oh my gosh, were people stopping you going, is that you?
Yeah. And I was at the malls in San Diego and stuff. And yeah, it was very weird.
Famous penguinologist.
I am really like appreciative of the mosaic though. It's a really cool piece of art.
Yeah, it really is beautiful what the artist did to, and something that again you will probably keep like a copy of it and treasure it and be like, how cool. Not everyone gets their face turned into like a beautiful mosaic. So
yeah, that felt pretty amazing. I maybe could have done without the side of the library, but whatever.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So we're kind of talking about your public facing image. I know that you've been creating a lot of communication things to kind of share about microplastics to the public. What are some actions that the public can take to help penguins? I'm sure you get that question a lot.
Yeah. Well, I talk to a lot of people, especially locally, about plastic pollution. I mean, I think it always impacts people when I talk about that we are finding plastics in penguin guano. I think that hearing that, is kind of like, it triggers people's emotions, knowing that humans are impacting this area and penguins. And, so that's very, I think, difficult to hear. And then I do work here with local seabirds that wash up dead on the beaches. We do necropsies or dissections, and we look at their stomach contents. and we see so much plastic. And so it's kind of a depressing avenue of research. But one of the things that I think with microplastics is a neat, not only visual, but gives people power is that every big piece of plastic we pick up or we prevent from getting into the ocean is thousands or possibly millions of pieces of nano and microplastics. And so thinking about it that way, especially when I talk to kids, when they're on the beaches, like they're our future, getting them thinking about it already and picking up trash and being like, oh, this could have been this many microplastics. That's empowering. And so definitely, preventing plastics from getting into the ocean is the biggest thing we could do to, stop or lessen, plastics in the marine environment.
Yeah. And for this World Ocean Day, and every World Ocean Day, Penguins International has our Pick Up for Penguins campaign, which is all about going into your community and removing debris before it ends up in the ocean. It's something that, like, I am based out of Colorado, and, there is no ocean, but everything eventually can end up in the ocean. And it's kind of crazy to think about, like plastics here could become microplastics and like find their way to Antarctica from, the middle of the United States. But of course, so different from where you live, right along the coast there in California, where you have the ocean right there, and getting people to take action for it. So,
well, and even here, we've been getting tons of rain, an abnormal amount of rain. And so I think when people see the amount of runoff coming from streets, that's, a very great visual of how, you could be way inland here in California and things could eventually make it down here.
Yeah. Here we have reservoirs and everything ends up getting connected. It's crazy how small our world can be if we look at it in a certain lens.
Definitely. Really. Yeah, definitely.
What is something that you have done to kind of maintain hope? I know in this space, sometimes when we talk about microplastics and we talk about doing necropsies and having to see all of that plastic accumulation, it's really hard some days. So what are some things that you do or ways that you stay positive and motivated in the day-to-day?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. So the other part of my research is mostly looking at climate change. And so it's kind of this double whammy of research interest for me. But I think in talking with young people and students that are just getting involved, and they have such amazing ideas, and so I think, we have great technologies, we have great minds. It's going to take bringing in all these different perspectives, working together. I know it's possible. It's just going to be difficult. And I think one day we'll get there. But in terms of climate change, I was just at COP28 in Dubai, and it was really amazing seeing people from all over the world come together and talk about climate change. And really, actually, I thought it was going to be the opposite, but it was encouraging. I thought the focus on climate change was going to be really hard.
Yeah.
And but it was really inspiring and encouraging seeing these people coming from all these different backgrounds with all these different perspectives and histories coming together to tackle problems. And that's what it's going to take with everything, right? Plastic pollution, climate change, fresh water needs, all of these things that we're going to be facing soon coming together. And I think anytime I see young people getting involved or these collaborative international or even, between different institutions, it's really encouraging. And I try to focus on that we do have technologies and pathways that could help, and those are getting better and better. And I think, it's just going to take us coming together.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, because science can unite us all. I know it can be really daunting and challenging at times, but you're right. Like we have the technology, and the bigger piece too is we have heart, we have passion for what we do. And I truly believe like we're gonna save penguins, we're gonna save the world if we work together. And like you said, it's not gonna be an easy process, but together, I think as like a world unified, we can make huge strides. So I just really love that you share that with everyone today, especially this World Ocean Day. Honestly, I have absolutely loved talking to you. I feel like we could talk to you for another half hour, but we're going to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with everybody. If you would like to follow Tammy's research, I have posted the Twitter and Instagram handle that she uses right here. Tammy, any left parting words that you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Oh, no, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Keep calm, penguin on.
Yeah, happy World Ocean Day, and yeah, keep believing. We'll get there.
We absolutely will. Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thanks,
Bye.
Katie. Bye.